All right. It is not the show people wanted. It's the show people needed. It's the Method of Victory Power Rankings with our boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. First off, Clint, thank you for having me on a while back, and so we had to reciprocate. And this is our most. You were saying like you get so many requests for one show that just doesn't quite get as many views as the other. This is the exact same thing with us. If we don't do a Method of Victory Power Rankings, we hear about it. So we got to give the people what we want. And you, my friend, are like the best in the business at giving the people what they want. So thank you so much for joining us, brother. How's everything going?
Hey, things are going good, man. Thank you guys very much for inviting me. I'm very excited about the format. This is going to be an adventure for me here to try and get through this here with you guys. But I'm pumped. I'm excited. It's Friday. We've got fights tomorrow, and it's one of those sneaky good cards where things might get a little crazy, and those are kind of my favorite because, you know, long shot props and stuff like that have a tendency to come through on these kinds of cards. So, yeah, man, let's get after it. I'm ready.
All right. Be honest, you guys. How many of us were worried when Fluffy wasn't making it to the scales until the very end? I was a little worried about that, but he looked great. I got to say, he looked fine.
So. He looked fluffy.
Absolutely. So, all right. If you have not joined us for the Method of Victory Power Rankings draft, here's how it works. So we take turns and we pick our favorite fight that we know who's going to win. We know how they're going to win, and that's number one. And then we go in the order of confidence. So Clint is going to have his top 12. Jim and I are going to have our top 12. We did a coin flip backstage. Clint, you won. So you get to go first. And before we get started with this, people ask us, like, should I bet these? Like, so these are not official client plays. However, what we've noticed is the first two or three have been really good. Putting those together in parlays have been good. Playing them individually has been good. If you like some of the angles that we give out, by all means, fire away. But these are not big bets by any stretch. This is a little bit more fun than it is actual client bets. So, all right, Clint, you're up first. What is your number one pick for the Method of Victory Power Rankings?
Okay, so you guys said number one, you said power rankings. Think of it like the football draft. And so I'm going to go real chalky and real boring here with my first pick in the draft. All right, so everybody forgive me. Don't worry, I'll be swinging by the rafters a couple of picks down. But for the first leg here, we've got to go, man, Sir Abdul Malik by knockout. I mean, it's minus 290. And you guys, I've noticed there's actually a decent trend about these odds where it's chalked up for a method of victory. They don't happen. Like if it's minus 250 for something like this, they go to a decision or like something greasy or weird happens. So don't play a KO prop at minus 290, but I do think that's the most likely outcome on the entire card. You know, striker versus grappler. Mansour has a grappling background himself, so I think he'll be able to shuck a couple of takedowns from Nick Klein. I don't like what I see from Klein on the feet. I don't think he has much striking to speak of, so he's kind of, you know, a leg merchant. He's got to get in there on a takedown to be able to win this fight, and I just don't see it happening. I think eventually he's going to run into something big, and Mansour is going to put him out.
I can't disagree with this one at all. Like we were actually going back and forth. It was just to let you guys know how different this is in opponents. Nick Klein by sub, which is if he's going to win, that's how he's going to win. It's like plus 1,400. So they're just letting you know what's going to happen. And honestly, last week, Clint, our number one pick was Cavalcanti by decision. The boring, chalky ones do seem to hit. So I applaud that one for your number one pick. So. All right, Jim, you want to talk about Fluffy as our number one pick?
So we're going to take Fluffy off the board first. We're going to take him off the board. This is a rematch fight. Now, and looking at rematches, and Clint, I've heard you say this before, no two fights are the same. So we're on the same page as far as that goes. No two fights are the same. However, I just think these fighters are the same as they were when they fought in LFA, just a little bit better on both sides. So I'm still going to stick with Hernandez by decision. I know it's 3 rounds. Big elephant in the room is this. Brendan Allen just had a baby. And one of our favorite theories is the fade the new dad theory. I am a recent new dad. Those 3 months right out the gate are a nightmare. So being a full-time fighter and getting ready to fight a guy who has weaponized cardio comparable to Merab, I just got to go with Hernandez. Hernandez isn't much of a finisher. I think that he's a finisher when he fights somebody who doesn't have the jiu-jitsu to stay alive and the cardio to stay alive. I see this as a rematch, same as before, decision, Hernandez.
I think the other thing is they're friends, aren't they, Jim? Like we've seen this happen before. Like it's kind of hard to finish
just being acquaintances. Yeah.
Clint, I don't know if you were if you're a fan of PFL. That was PFL, the ping pong partners, right, Jim?
Was that UFC? The brother, no. the Godfather was PFL.
Yeah, they had a guy who was a godfather of another guy, and they just put on this horrible sparring session. It was so bad PFL disqualified both of them.
I got to tell you, I actually had a real bone to pick with PFL over that because that wasn't the fighter's fault. That was PFL's freaking fault.
Exactly.
Like, you know these guys love each other. You know they got to come over to the barbecue on Saturday and say your dad knocked me out and cost me $1 million. Like, you know they're not going to kill each other. And then you go on to disqualify them for a bad fight. Like, just matchmake better, dumbass. Like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cussed on your show. My bad.
Cuss away.
That's everything you need to know about the current state of the PFL to me.
That's true. We were watching one fight, the preview videos, and these two guys were friends. They were like, "Yeah, we love playing ping pong together." Jim and I were like, "Over."
Yep.
Going over. So, all right. So we got our number one picks. Clint, coming to you. What's your second pick in the power rankings draft?
Now, strategically speaking, with you guys having taken Hernandez, do I still talk about that fight? Do I
Absolutely.
or is that
Absolutely.
one off the board?
No. You get all the fights. It's
okay.
just the difference in the order.
I'm going to stick with my trend of being really boring here on your guys' show. That's my number 2 is Hernandez by decision. I couldn't agree with you guys more about that one. And I do say that no two fights are ever alike. And I don't think this fight is going to be identical to the last one because all these guys knew how to do was wrestle the last time they fought. Now both of them are also very good strikers. However, they've both leveled up in their defenses as well. I think the cardio edge obviously is going to go to Fluffy. Brendan Allen has shown that he knows how to hang on for dear life. And unless Fluffy is getting a choke, he's not usually going to get you out of there. And I think Brendan Allen will know how to survive some of those choking style positions, and he'll be able to get himself to a decision victory. I think it's going to be 1-1 going into 3, and then Fluffy does what he does in round 3. And yeah, I'm with you guys. Hernandez by decision.
Clint, what's your take on, like, Fluffy's been fighting strikers, this win streak. A lot of the guys have been strikers, and now you got Brendan Allen. It's not necessarily a striker; it's a little bit better on the ground. Do you think that helps Hernandez, or do you think it might be a little bit of weakness? I think he's avoided the knockout against some of these strikers. I think it speaks of Hernandez.
I agree with you. We've talked about Fluffy being a little bit weak to the body. We've seen that's the one place you can really kind of expose and hurt him. His chin is fine, but it's the body that's a bit of a problem. So you've got these guys. I mean, put him in there with Chris Curtis. He's dead. Dead man walking. Like, Chris Curtis will rib roast the guy until he breaks in half, and he won't be able to get those early takedowns. That would be a problem matchup for Fluffy. But he survived guys like Roman Hopalov, who's got those big body kicks. He survived Michel Pereira, who can hit him with the flying knee to the chest. None of those guys were able to get him. I think Brendan Allen's improved greatly in the striking realm. He's got decent body kicks on him, but at his core, he's a grappler. So I think we're going to end up on the mat at some point here. And especially once Brendan Allen starts breathing hard, he always ends up on the mat. So I think Allen's got maybe 4 minutes to land something big, and that's not really his thing, is landing something big. So yeah, I just think it's a better matchup for Fluffy.
I also felt great when I saw Brendan Allen's blonde hair.
He looks like Guile from Street Fighter, man. You got the haircut.
Great call. It's a great call. All right, Jim, we're going to number 2 here. We got several candidates here. Do we like Basharat? Do we want to go a little bit more fringe? What do you think here?
I'm sticking again. We want the top 3 to hit. I'm going to go with Basharat. I think we should go with Basharat here.
Okay.
Basharat by points, by decision, minus 120. Again, not big props, but look, it's minus 120 for a reason. Another gentleman that decided to show up with a brand new haircut is Ricky Simone. Clint, you've heard us talk about the haircut theory, right?
I believe I have.
It's like a lack of focus. You're about to go into a cage. Who cares what your hair looks like? If you're concentrating on the hair, you're missing the meat and potatoes of what you're about to get into here. And for Ricky, it has to be like out of the blue or poorly done. Ricky Simone's never come in with dye blonde hair. Okay. So I don't know what he's focused on. This is a refocused Basharat who has experienced a loss now. Love betting these guys after a loss. And the jury's just out on Ricky Simone. I don't think he's going to have the striking to hurt Basharat. It'll probably be a close decision, but I think it's going to be one of those where Basharat does just enough to get the decision win.
All right, Clint, coming to you here. Your third pick. Who do you like here?
Well, I finally have some plus money to offer to the people here at my third spot. We're going to go Nursultan Ruziboev by knockout. I think a lot of people are getting a little distracted in this fight. I have been leading the charge on this guy not being UFC caliber. I actually want to fade him at every opportunity I can, but I also know everybody and their mom was piling in on this guy last time against Joaquin Buckley. They are not zigging when they should be zagging. These people are going right in line with the recency bias, right? They bet on this guy. He loses to Buckley. Now they want to fade him. Last time was the time to fade him. Next time is the time to fade him. Not this time. This is the UFC giving him a get right spot. Now, I know his opponent coming in here trains with Jared Cannonier. He looks like Jared Cannonier. He's got a decent frame. He trains at a good gym. I'm just not impressed. He's been knocked out twice. He's been rocked in like 2 or 3 of his other fights, and he's fighting an extremely low level, non-UFC level of competition. And I know some people have made the argument for Ruziboev by submission. He's actually got more subs on his record than he does KOs, you guys. But that's because the guy's a guard merchant. He's got a really nasty Kimura arm lock attack, but he only attacks it from his back. If you take him down, that's the very first thing he hunts is this Kimura, and he uses it to sweep and roll you. And most of these bums he's fought just don't know how to defend it well enough. So he actually ends up getting it. I think he could get it on a guy like this, but I don't think he's going to be on his back against a guy like this. So I fully expect Ruziboev to get in there fast, quick, early, land those long shots, and just never give this man a second to recover and breathe. So yeah, it's Ruziboev by KO for me. Realistically, if you are betting this one, you guys, the number's probably not all that different to go inside the distance, just in case the sub happens, but I think it's KO over sub.
I do this thing, Clint, where I like putting the 2 fighters in their last 2 fights on screens right next to each other, and I like looking at the speed of the fighters. And Ruziboev's hand speed is so much better than this guy.
Eric McConaughey is going to look like he's moving in molasses.
he might absolutely. So, all right, Jim, we're going with our third pick. Who do you want to go with in this one? I'll let you have this one. I'll take next one.
All right. Andy swayed me a little bit this week, a lot of it actually, and told me to get my head out of my you-know-what. I'm going to jump at the chance to fade Andre Fili. Just fade Andre Fili, who does what every fight? Leaves you wanting more. Always leaves you wanting more. A nice combination, then a bunch of inactivity. Great movement, then he's stuck in cement shoes. He just always leaves us wanting more. That being said, I don't see Costa as a big, massive finisher. I think he's going to have an advantage in the grappling if he wants to get it there. And I'm just banking on Fili making mistakes again. So we're going to go Costa by decision, 3 decisions to start, plus 165. I really like that number at plus 165. See, now we're getting to the plus money, Clint. Chalky in the beginning. Now we can start throwing some meat.
I like it.
All right, Clint. Number 4, who do you got?
Yeah, so for number 4, this is where things start to get a little weird for me, you guys. I didn't know quite how to rank these because there's some spots that are going to look like they're a little easier to hit, but I'm less confident in them. So for number 4, I'm going to go Rafael Sequeira by knockout at plus 400.
Whoa! I love it.
Okay, do tell.
I love it. Talk it out.
Modestas Bukauskas is a bum, you guys. He's been a bum his entire career. Like, he went to Cage Warriors and he fought a poor level of competition, and people are fawning over the corrections he's made and how much better he's gotten. He didn't do a damn thing different. He didn't do a single thing different. This guy is low volume. He is plotting. He has tall man's defense. He has no killer instinct. He's a decision merchant in one of the biggest finishing weight classes we've seen. He has minus power for the 205-pound division, and he was getting his butt kicked by Marcin Prachniow in his last fight. I had the tightest sphincter you guys will ever hear about because I wanted to fade Marcin Prachniow with everything I had. I had a huge bet on Modestas Bukauskas in that fight, and it was 1-1 going into 3. And Modestas did not look like he was having a good time on the feet. So I overestimated this man even when I wanted to put my money on him. Cerqueira is coming off of an all-time worst UFC debut. Look, I know it was ugly. I know it was bad. But realistically, you have never, ever seen Modestas Bukauskas move anything like Ibo Aslan did in that first round. He does not come out fast. He does not start strong that way. And he does not have the killer instinct to flurry on a guy like that up against the cage. He will throw 1, maybe 2 strikes and then back off and give you space to breathe. That is going to give Rafael Cerqueira room to move. This guy trains with Jailton Almeida. He's a BJJ black belt, so he can go to the wrestling grappling if he chooses to. And then on top of that, if he doesn't want to go wrestling grappling, this guy is slick with his spinning attacks, the flying knees. He's very explosive and athletic on the feet. I just think that tall man's defense of Modestas Bukauskas is going to leave something open, and I think he's going to get clipped and knocked out early.
I love that you brought up recency bias in breaking down this fight. This is a great, you cannot get a worse view of him from his last fight. It can't get worse. Like, the only way it gets worse if he's like the guy on Contender Series that just said he didn't want to fight Cody Steele about 10 minutes before they were going to fight.
Yep.
Pretty bad.
So I think recency bias this year is a really good, like you said, time to zig and zag. I don't hate it, man. I don't hate it.
All right. Well, I'm going to revisit this fight a little bit later, Clint. You and I are going to go head to head in this one, and that's going to be a lot of fun. But for number 4, Jim, I'm going to go Rob Font by decision. His striking is going to be high volume. It always is, but it's never knockout, level, unless you're fighting Yanez, who gets tired in the first round because he went too hard too early, like, I did in my early 20s going to a club, and I got to get wheeled out of there at 10:30. But like, I don't buy Matsumoto's going to be able to get the striking going, and Matsumoto should have the wrestling and grappling advantage because Rob Font has basically no offense and no defense. But the fact is, Rob Font hasn't been finished in these fights that he loses. He loses by decision when guys take him down. We bet against Kyler Phillips. We liked Rob Font against him, and he came through. He did exactly what we thought he would do. I think his striking is going to be a little too much for Matsumoto. I think Matsumoto will attempt some takedowns. He may even get a couple, but I think Rob Font on the feet is just going to be a little bit too much. I think his volume and activity is going to be a little too much for the judges to ignore. So I'm getting Rob Font at decision plus 200. Jim and I both like this fight to go the distance. So if I get Matsumoto at plus 110 to go decision and I get Font by decision at plus 200, I'm going to take the better odds, and I'm going to take Rob Font plus 200 by decision. All right, Clint, we're at number 5. Who you got?
I'm going to follow up my last performance with another one. We're going to go with the Juicebox Walker by knockout at plus 400. I think Alonzo Minifield falls very, very firmly in the Modestas Bukauskas bum level of fighter here. His only wins in the UFC are guys that have been cut or guys on a losing streak. And then one random outlier where personally, I felt like the fight probably should have gone the other way. I appear to be in the minority there, but he stole a decision from Dustin Jacoby by rocking him twice, where he got 2 rounds.
Minority.
You're not minority on this show, brother.
Yeah,
I'm glad you guys agree with me because I checked the MMA Decisions website, and there was one media member that scored it for Dustin Jacoby. The world thought that Minifield won that fight, so I was like, "Oh, am I the problem? Am I the bad guy?" I am very happy to hear I've got a couple of teammates here on this one because I thought he lost that fight. So I just anytime this guy gets a step up in competition, even slightly, he gets waxed. The UFC gave Jimmy Crute 2 cracks at it because they thought Crute was supposed to be the guy. Like, the first fight didn't go the way they wanted, and they went, you know what, Jimmy? take a breath, take a little bit of time off, get yourself together, and we'll give you Minifield again to make sure you can get up and over this hump. What did he do? Jimmy Crute retired instead. So that was a failed experiment, but that was the idea, right? We're looking at Askar Mozarov, the biggest fraud the UFC has ever seen. Misha Serkinov, old, retired, fragile. Ed Herman, the shell of Ed Herman. This guy barely got by him. Fabio Charant. I mean, these are awful names. The guy is 7-5 now, goes by the Water Buffalo. Like, these are the guys he's beating, right? He's losing to Devin Clark, who's no longer with the UFC. He lost to William Knight, who's no longer with the UFC. He's now 37 years old, off back-to-back KO losses. And I don't know if you guys have seen him at weigh-ins. He is notably less shredded coming into this fight. If you look at what last week was it, where we had Walker's monstrous little brother in the UFC, his opponent came in, Dante Almays, and he looked career worst. And I'm getting serious vibes here, where Alonzo Minifield is coming in looking physically career worst. We know he's got a bad gas tank to begin with. If you guys listen to his interviews, he actually went out to train at a different gym. He left Fortis MMA to go get a different look, wanted to go somewhere else, get some new bodies, get some new coaches, but he got there, packed up, and went home. He went, you know what? We do close enough to this at home already. So he turned around and took his ass right back home. He didn't do anything differently coming into this. He seems far less motivated. And now any hopes of being a contender, that door has been firmly slammed by the last two losses. Juicebox is 6-0 undefeated, one of the rare signees by the UFC who didn't have to go through Dana White's Contender Series. I think this kid is legit. I like this kid. He's got excellent cardio. As long as he doesn't have like a glass chin that we're not seeing on his rise to the UFC, if he doesn't get bonked early by a guy like Alonzo Minifield, I think he's just going to put a pace on him. And I fully expect him to get one of those back mount ground and pound TKOs he's so well known for.
Damn, Clint bringing the heat. I can't believe this is 5 for you. This sounded like number 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I love the conviction.
I'm on his money line. It was a matter
Okay.
of the finish prop being confident. You know what I mean? I like him to win the fight. I've already got my money involved. Does he get the finish with it being his UFC debut? Does he drag to a decision? Like, I don't know. So maybe this one should have been bumped up at least over Cerquera. Maybe I should have made it my 4, but yeah,
love it.
I like this kid.
I'm guessing, Clint, you were not that big of a fan of Menifield's idea to run across against Carlos Olberg and try not great.
You know what? And I told everybody how overrated Carlos Olberg was going into that fight. And then Minifield is like, my forehead right here, buddy. Like, take a shot. It's like, yeah, that'll do it.
We've been big Carlos Olberg fans on this show. So, all right, Jim, you get number 5 here. What are we going with?
I'm going with Song Yadong. We're going to cross off the main event here at number 5. We're going to go Song Yadong, and we're going to go in by decision. These guys don't get finished. They just don't. And I know Henry's old. And that's where I'm going next. Guess what, everybody? Henry's old. All right? He's old. He's retired and come back. Ask Jim Crute how it feels to retire and come back. We don't see this succeed. You don't retire and come back and find the form. And one of the biggest things that me and Nitty talk about is you have to separate yourself from the fighters that you saw 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Okay. That was a big problem I had with Frankie Edgar when he got up in his career. It's like, but it's Frankie Edgar. He can do anything. Well, no, he can't do anything anymore. Henry's an Olympic gold medalist. He's not anymore. Okay. I saw him on the scales today. He looked like a deflated old man body. I just didn't see anything in there that really makes me think that he's going to be able to tame this young lion. Huge size advantage for Song, tough as nails, 5-round situation. And who's to say this takes me back again to Weili and Suarez. Yes, Henry's wrestling is way better for 2019. This is 2025. You're telling me that Song can't get good enough to stuff Henry's takedowns? I'm going with Song. I'm going with the young lion. We're going to continue to fade these old fighters. This is the year of change. These fighters are old. We have young lions coming up. Song Yadong by decision.
All right, Clint, coming to you. Number 6. Who you got?
So for number 6, I'm going to go with the fighting nerds.
Yes.
Dean Silva by decision at
Yes.
plus 200.
Love it.
I think
Hit me.
Malik Bagsarian is too slick. Like, I know he slows down. I'm a little worried about his shoulder because he's coming off, I believe, a labrum tear is the
Yes.
reason for the layoff. So I'm a little worried about his defensive capabilities. But we are doing southpaw versus orthodox. It's going to be the right hand of Silva versus the left kick of Bagsarian. I think both these guys are going to have to respect that power coming from their opponent. And I really want to see face-offs because I'm not sure what the size difference is going to look like. Malik is not a small man. So I think we're going to have another very carefully crafted fight here from Silva in this spot. And the only way I see him kind of getting that finish is if he decides to go with like a grapple heavy approach. I actually think Silva sub is more likely than Silva KO in this fight. But I think the defensive work from Bagsarian is going to what kind of drags this thing to the decision. I like the decision prop.
Love it.
So happy you're on decision. That it's not to spoil if I get to pick this one or Andy, but you know where I was going with this one too.
Let's have some fun here. I'm going to go with Bukauskas. And I'm going to go at this. I can't ignore this plus 650 by decision. So I'm going to, or by submission. So I see that Cerqueira fight completely different than you, Clint. I saw a guy that froze. I saw a guy that I could barely find film on him before that fight. And the film I did find was him fighting in high school gymnasiums. And the moment was too big for him. It just looked like he was a lost cause. Is he going to be that bad? Probably not, because the UFC surely wouldn't be giving him another like fight if they really thought that's what you were going to get from him. Maybe they do, but you brought up a good point. Bukauskas can be low volume and he can be hit. But we saw with Prachnio, he can get people to the ground, and he had a really nice submission win. If Cerqueira does start landing shots, and you believe he will, you got the KO by plus 400. I don't think it's going to be that hard to take this guy to the ground, and I think Bukauskas is live for a submission here. I don't trust Bukauskas on the feet to get a KO. I don't think he's that kind of striker. He's a little bit more like, I'll piece you up and I'll touch you, but I'm not going to be able to land the huge overhand, destructive KO that's going to make a bunch of highlight films. But I do think that Bukauskas is the better fighter. If this gets out of the first round, I don't know what Cerqueira's cardio is going to be like, and I don't trust him on the ground. So I'll take Bukauskas by sub at plus 650. So if you're kind of figuring this out, I think we all agree this fight may not go the distance. So that might be a good way to look at under 2.5 or not to go the distance. So shout out to everybody, guys. Louis Mack, John, Tommy, it's Guzzy, UFC. Oh, Lion Hunter. By the way, Clint, this guy, UFC CBB Lion Hunter, did an insane breakdown last week and completely called one of these fights because he lives in the area of one of the fighters and knew him really, really well. It was the Delgado fight, and he was like, take Delgado by KO in the first round. I know his opponent. He fights in his mom's, he trains in his mom's basement. This guy's a joke. But his breakdown was just spot on. Like it was detailed. It was very, very well thought out. So shout out to you guys. And yes, ceremonial weigh-ins are about to start. Yes, he's right up our alley. So welcome anytime. All right, number 7, Clint. It's up to you. What you got?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Basharat by decision here. I'm going to agree with you guys on Basharat by decision. I got a little fancy-pantsy on this one, though, and I played the Ricky Simone spread, if you guys have seen that, where it's plus 3.5 on the judges' scorecards, because Basharat has basically 29-28 every single fight. He always has these mental lapses. He makes these errors. He gives away at least one round. And while I do think Ricky Simone is kind of capped out at the UFC level, I think he's early at least going to be the better of these two fighters. He's got the back class, he's got the history. This is kind of a changing of the guard type situation, and usually those are very close competitive fights where the young gun gets the dub. So I'm betting that I can get one round from Ricky Simone, but I do think the final outcome will be Basharat by decision.
What's your take when you have these guys that lose their first, then they got to come back? Do you think it's this is like a eye-opening experience for them, and they got to train a little bit harder? Or do you think they get a little deflated, or is it just case-by-case basis? You got someone like
I do think that it's a bit of a case-by-case basis. With Basharat, his last fight, that was very close.
Mhm.
I feel like that fight could have very easily gone his way. It just kind of depends on the judging. But I also think that that's been his style essentially since he got to the UFC. He's never done anything differently from what he did in his last fight. And I don't know if he's got the hardware to do much different. He's not a guy that can step down, bite down on his mouthpiece and swing harder than he does. Like, he's not a big KO threat. And when he gets to those dominant positions, it seems like he kind of has to focus on control. So the submissions, I'm not sure he's so opportunistic with those submissions. And especially with a guy like Ricky, I think it's going to take everything he's got to maintain position, much less do any type of damage from those spots. So I just kind of think Javid Basharat is what he is at this point. Like, he's going to kind of decisionate people until a certain point, and then we'll be able to get a decent number fading him. But I kind of feel like we've seen what he is at this point.
Well, if we're right and Basharat wins by decision, the good news is we can make money betting on Ricky Simone in the PFL. Very quickly. Jim, going to you, number 7. Who you got?
I'm going to be the same line as Clint here. I'm going to go with Ruziboev by KO.
There you go.
I think this is right where it needs to be in our rankings. I loved your breakdown on it. I agree 100%. And you're dead on technically how you're breaking down what Ruziboev does from the grappling positions. He is only dangerous on his back with that Kimura. And Clint, let me ask you, can you remember the last Kimura that was finished in the UFC?
No, actually, because I tried to play this game last week. There was somebody else who has a decent Kimura on him last week. I was trying to figure that out. It doesn't happen very often. It's I know it's a leverage submission, guys. As a grappler, I can tell you it's a leverage submission. But there are certain guys that are just so beefy, just so strong. They've got such thick arms. Alonzo Menifield, for example, you're not going to Kimura them because even though they're not flexible, they've just got too much beef on them to get that type of a sub. And that's where it's very difficult to do at this level because people have very strong arms.
It's the same. Like, we always joke on the live stream when people go for a triangle. Like, when's the last triangle you saw? MMA's evolving, and this Kimura is just not. It's got to be from a defensive position. And to be honest, if he's on his back going for it, he doesn't get it once. He's probably not getting it again at the UFC level, all right? He's not going to lock it in. So, yeah, Ruziboev by KO. I think that's the best play in that fight easily.
I feel like the triangle is like one of those fads. It's just like it's just not like it's not a thing anymore. It's like Beavis and Butthead. It's over, guys. All right, number 8 there. Clint, who you got?
I'm going to get in line with you guys here. I like Costa by decision.
Nice.
I think Andre Fili is ripe for the taking. I'm actually considering going a little bit on Costa money line for this fight. I think it's a changing of the guard spot where you've got Fili, who's barely retaining relevancy in the UFC. He's been around forever. He can fight with anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to disrespect the guy. But 3 of his last 4 wins, you guys, have come by split. So he's fighting exceptionally closely anytime he gets his hand raised or he loses. And that's the only option here at this point. Costa is a young kid, should be coming into his prime, should be improving, should be getting better. He's going to have a grappling advantage in this fight. I don't think he's out of his element on the feet. I do think Fili's the better striker, but I think that the improvements we've seen from Costa, it could be considered close. And if it's close, Fili's probably not going to distance himself in this fight. So, yeah, I like Costa for the upset here. He flipped a favorite, so technically he's the favorite. But I like the plus money on the decision prop here.
All right.
You guys saw that he's 2-0 at 145, right? And this is at 145.
Nice.
So those losses are at 155. It makes me like it even more.
Love it. All right. If I was Michael Keaton in the first Batman movie, I would say, you want to get nuts? All right, let's get nuts. Clint, Malik by KO at minus 295 is absolutely 100% the right call.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't get the KO, it is going to be Klein by submission, and that's at plus 1,400. Got to sprinkle in some of these.
I like it.
Klein was the darling of that last episode. He may have even been the darling of the entire Contender series. With if you haven't watched his Contender series,
go watch it.
It's only 30 seconds. He was short notice. He had no business, or he had not planned to be there, but he kept himself in shape. They start the fight, and he just runs across the cage and grabs the guy's neck before the guy knows what's going to happen and chokes him unconscious. And then he gives this insane like polarizing interview, and he's charismatic, and there's no way he's not getting a contract, and he's got his family on camera and everything. So he's got nothing to lose, and he will tell you that himself. I'm always prepared for this. Chase your dreams. You got to love a guy like that. And if he can weather the early storm, if he can get Malik a little bit tired, he's absolutely live for the now his striking's bad. It's really bad. Like, unless he makes leaps and bounds better, he's not going to land very many strikes. But if he can get it to the ground, he could get Malik out of his own world. He's live for the submission. I agree that Malik by KO is the play, but if Klein's going to win, it's going to be by sub. So I'll take the plus 1400. All right, Clint, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. We're getting down to the tough ones here. So who you got at number 9?
You know, I got to tell you guys, I'm going to be relatively boring on this card. Like, I already gave you my kind of hot takes. They're higher up on my list, I guess, than maybe they should be. But I like Yadong by decision here in this spot, same as you guys. I was just looking up old photos of Neuroforce 1, Henry Cejudo, and those days are long behind us. He was a different animal back then, 38 years old, long layoff. He's my guy. I am tempted, you guys. I'm tempted, just for old time's sake, to ride or die with my boy Henry, because the KO prop is 11-1. And that's what I used to do, is I'd go 2 units Henry money line, 1 unit or half a unit Henry KO every single fight, because he was just massacring people left and right. I was printing with Henry Cejudo. I just don't know if he's that guy anymore. Song Yadong is younger. Song Yadong is bigger. You know, he's only been finished twice. Both of those were by KO, I will say. But one of them was up a weight class when he was far younger, and then the other one was a cut stoppage. So I can't really count on his durability not being there or anything like that. 25-minute fight. If we got the old Henry that was at Neuroforce 1, maybe he can grind this kid out, make him tired, and get like a late TKO finish. But this version of Henry, I'm not sure what this version of Henry is. I don't know if he's going to push the pace. I don't know if he's going to try to keep it technical. I don't know if we're wrestling and hanging on for dear life. I know he's got power. He hurt Merab in round 1 of their last fight, and that was impressive in itself. But then he just kind of faded off after that. And I know Song is nowhere near Merab, but it's a 25-minute fight. So if he doesn't get that one big explosive shot, is he still going to be able to keep coming with those kinds of strikes? I'm bouncing back and forth on this one, you guys. The degenerate in me wants to take Cejudo KO 11-1 just for giggles. But most likely, I think the actual outcome is Song by decision.
Clint Mac, thoughts on Henry over 2.5 takedowns at minus 110?
I like that.
5 rounds? Yeah.
5-round fight. Yeah. I mean, this guy took down Aljamain Sterling, who's given people problems up at 145 pounds. Piotr Jan was taking down Song Yadong in their fight. And I think didn't he like rip his MCL or something like that in that fight? Like, so he was fighting injured and still able to get takedowns on Song Yadong. I expect Song can pounce back up. He's very explosive. He's very big. He's very athletic. I think he can pop right back up to his feet. So yeah, chain takedowns for Henry Cejudo over 2.5 seems very live.
All right, Mac, you get the 2 thumbs up on Henry over 2.5 takedowns.
That could happen in one round.
Yeah,
you get one
really
quick
good
sequence. Good, because like you said, Song's getting back up. We like it.
Yeah. All right, Jim. Number 9. Come on. Dude, come on. Give us Kudalaba. Come on. Go to Kudalaba.
We spend way too much time together, me and you, Andy, because it is Kudalaba. Of course it's Kudalaba. Now, how do we play Kudalaba? That's the big question, right? So Kudalaba has rattled off 2 decisions. The man that we never thought would have the ability to go to decision because of his IQ and his skill somehow finds a way to go to 2 decisions. I'd love to play him by decision at plus 500, but I can't ignore the fact that Ebo does not know how to grapple. Literally does not know how to grapple. He made Anton Tricali look like a top 20 fighter. And nothing against the Pleasure Man, probably my most profitable fighter ever to bet against. I loved the Pleasure Man. I made so much money on him, right? He was such an easy fight to predict. I'm going to go Kudalaba by submission at plus 1100.
Ooh, okay.
I could see Ebo throwing heat in the first round. Next thing you know, you have Kudalaba on top of him. Now, Kudalaba doesn't have a great gas tank, but Clint, you're the grappling guy. When you have an exhausted, big, giant, light heavyweight man laying on the ground, they're going to stick their neck where it doesn't belong. And even Kudalaba could find a submission here.
One of my new favorites, tired people tap.
That's right.
That's
right.
Tired people tap. Yeah, you're so right. All right, 10, 11, and 12 here. I just can't wait to see who goes for this Vanderford fight first. Maybe last on our list.
Well,
Clint, you going for it?
I got you covered. I'll go Vanderford by decision. Again, I'm being boring. I'm sorry. Vanderford is a good wrestler. He's got decent cardio. I thought the guy was going to get signed off Dana White's Contender Series, quite frankly. I do need to do a little bit of more legwork on this one, you guys. I'll be honest with you. I did not look into Veretnikov, and because this fight got put together so late, I just haven't had the chance to. But both these guys are older. Like, it's 34 and 35, so we're out of our primes here. Veretnikov did well against Danny Barlow, went to a split decision in his UFC debut. That's a good look, you'd think. But he's kind of a KO or bust type of guy. Now, Vanderford's been knocked out twice, so like the KO angle is going to be there for him. I think he's going to have to kind of shoot for his life here in this spot. Yeah, Vanderford by decision, I think, is the most likely outcome here, and I kind of hate it. I'm not feeling overly confident in this fight, though.
Yeah, I mean, we have to pick all of them. So these are, when you get down to 10, 11, 12, these are not the most super confident. I'll go real quick here at number 10. Jim, we haven't used Silva yet. Clint did by decision. I'll go ahead and take him by KO. Clint was 100% right with the break. I am not a believer in Melsick at all. It's minus 105, so it's not the best value. And this is one thing Jim and I worry about with some of these guys is there's times when guys are knocking guys out and they're not getting enough octagon time or not enough cage time. And we saw it with Ruffy, I thought, in his last fight, where it was like, yo, you could roll through this guy. But no.
Tom Nolan.
There's another one. We've seen this in PFL with
Biagio Ali Walsh.
Biagio Ali Walsh, where it's like you guys should steamroll these guys, and you could right off the bat, you're like, oh, his camp is like, nope, you're going to get 15 minutes in the cage here. I don't know if Silva's there yet. I think that Melsick leaves himself way too open, and Melsick's one-dimensional. He's got body kicks now. The body kicks are great. But as you mentioned, Clint, it's the fighting nerds. You don't think the fighting nerds are going to have a really good plan to block body kicks. So I love Silva's length. Thought he looked great at weigh-in, so we'll take Silva by KO. All right, number 11 here, Clint. Who you got?
We're going to go with Aibo Aslan by KO.
There you go.
This is another one, you guys. I'm gonna give you both sides of the story on this one, because with all these down at the bottom of my list, I'm like this close to going with the other side. I can't trust Ion Kutalaba's IQ. I can still feel the pain when he got TKO'd by Magomed Ankalaev faking like he was injured. Like, the guy played possum so hard, the referee actually stepped in and waved off the fight. I bet on Ion Kutalaba that night. I was furious because I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, he actually looked like he was in that fight. Now, thankfully, saw the writing on the wall and didn't go back to it in the rematch. He actually got KO'd in the rematch. But that night, it was like, bro, what are you doing? So I just can't trust the guy's IQ. I can't trust him to come out and fight the correct game plan. If he wants to wrestle and get Aibo tired, I actually think that we could get a submission from him late. I think the sub is potentially more likely than the decision, just because the one thing we know Ion's got is that killer instinct. So I almost put Ion Kutalaba by submission here for this pick. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to get predictable coming in for takedowns and catch a knee or something like that. And Aibo, bigger, younger, potentially hits harder. I'm going to go ahead and buy in on the hype train at this point, although I'm not super hyped on him at all. I think he wins this one.
Can we agree if this fight lasts over 2.5 minutes, it's going to be the ugliest fight of the night? Both these guys. Are we just going to be laughing for 2 more rounds?
It could be. That Menafield fight could be brutal.
That's true.
It's into the second round. All right, Jim, we got 2 left here. We got the Vanderford fight. Who do you like here?
I'm going to take Vanderford now, or we'll take Vanderford now. Now, here's Clint. I didn't have time to make one, but I wanted to get a tinfoil hat for homage to you, because I have a little tinfoil hat in this fight here. Why in the world, my man?
Oh, he's got
We're ready to go over here.
I'm sending it to you, okay? Why is Austin Vanderford in the UFC now? I can't figure it out for the life of me. Why Mr. Paige Van Zandt is in the UFC now. Now, granted, in Bellator, he did get knocked out twice, but he got knocked out by some good guys. Gegard Mousasi and Jeffrey. And Jeffrey's not a knockout artist, but you have to say he's one of the better fighters in PFL that we've seen over the past couple years. So that's where the KOs come from. I just can't get there with his opponent. I can't. I have to believe that at Power Slap 2 months ago, when Paige was there with Austin, with Dana, that this was discussed and it was said, I'm bringing you in at some point as soon as we need to get you on a card. And we're going to throw you somebody who you can beat. This is a marketing machine play here. UFC likes money. Who's more marketable, Vanderford winning or Vanderford losing? Give me Vanderford by KO.
Ooh. Wow, by KO, not by sub?
I'm going to go by KO.
Wow.
Again, we're down to 11 and 12 here.
Yeah.
Give me Austin Vanderford by KO. Let me just pull the line up, unless you have it, Andy.
By KO is plus 550.
There you go. Plus 550 at number 11. Make the big splash and put the marketing machine behind him.
I mean, this Veretennikov clip, we were joking. It was like somehow he made a Danny Barlow fight boring. Which is, I mean, it takes talent. I mean,
that's tough to do.
It's really tough to do. Danny Barlow's like, wait, we don't just stand and hit each other? Veretennikov's like, nope. We dance around and we throw 30 strikes. We land 30 strikes across 3 rounds. That's how we do it. All right, Clint, your last one. Who you got?
So for my last one, I'm gonna get about as greasy as it gets here. I'm going to go with Gene Matsumoto by submission at plus 650. Rob Font getting old. Rob Font catch weight. Rob Font opponent change. Rob Font can't defend a takedown. Like, all this stuff comes together for me here. And I'm like, I know this is a phenomenal step up in competition. I know Matsumoto is probably too green for this fight. And I can't get to this money line price tag on him because of that. But I think if he does win this fight, it's because he grapples. He has to grapple if he wants to win this fight against Rob Font. We saw what happened to him in round 3 in his last fight. Rob will destroy him if this fight takes place on the feet. So I'm thinking he must grapple. And if he grapples for, 12 minutes ish of a 15-minute fight, he's slick. He's got some good chokes on him, good back control. Like, I think there's a chance he can find his way to a sub. But yeah, that's going to be a long shot there for me.
All right, my last long shot. It's just going to be Walker by decision. I agree with everything that you said about Alonzo Menafield. I'm just wondering if Walker, I don't think the lights are going to be too bright for him, but if there's a chance he tries to take it easy. And the last time we watched Menafield, he was just a shell of himself. He was awful as the fight went on. He was getting pieced up, and I think he's got durability issues, but I wonder if Walker just tries to grind this thing out. And I wonder if his camp and his corner are just like, you get this guy into the second round and he's done. Like, you don't need to go for the glory early. And I think he stays out of harm's way. Can't say it's the most confident pick. That's why it's down at number 12 here, but I'll go with Walker by decision. So, all right. Well, we don't need, you got the graphic, but let's go over both of our top threes. Clint's going with Malik by KO, Hernandez by decision, Ruziboev by KO. We're going with Hernandez by decision, Basharat by decision, and Costa by decision there. So, Clint, before we get on there, you tell the story about Ryan Bader that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, I mean, for those people who don't know, I mean, I know I'm the insane dad bod guy behind a microphone these days, but I used to be a decent athlete, and I actually did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for years. And when Power MMA and Fitness opened up here in Phoenix, I actually was I was just out of college and was working over in that area. So I signed up. I was like, I'm newly into the UFC bug here, right? Like, so give me a crack at this. These are some guys I know, some names I'm familiar with. This is awesome. So I sign up at the gym, and I'm just doing jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, etc. Didn't think much of it, but then one day Bader shows up at grappling class, and it's super cool because I'm fanboying, right? Like, this is probably like the biggest name. It was him and Cain Velasquez. Those are the Arizona boys. Those are the guys we're all cheering for in the UFC. I was like, this is freaking sweet. Maybe I can meet him. And then I kind of look around the room and I was like, there's nobody else here that weighs 200 pounds. So coach is like, hey, I'm the biggest body in the room. So I get called over to grapple with Ryan Bader. And I'm like, okay, first off, freaking cool. Nice to meet you, bro. And then I'm like, all right, I'm just, I'm thinking this is going to be fun. Like, I've grappled with my coach before. So like, I kind of know what to expect. And then, so I go up and I'm like, all right, like I'm just going to try something crazy. And I grab on with my hands and I went, oh shit. As soon as I got my hands on this guy's forearms, it felt like coiled steel. I had no idea a human being could be that strong. And I realized what kind of a mistake I was in for having agreed to this. He actually slapped a triangle choke on me, you guys. And I know we were talking about how ineffective those are at the UFC level these days. Ryan Bader did not know how to do a triangle choke. So it was not on correctly. I actually did a good job of defending it and got my shoulder out of it. So it wasn't cutting off the arteries the way it's supposed to. But what it did do is it flipped my right ear over itself like this. And when he squeezed, I mean, I thought my head was going to pop like a watermelon between his thighs. Like, it was not a choke. It was a panic. My head's going to explode. Like, I have not felt pain like this. It was the garbage compactor scene from like Star Wars. Like, I was just getting smashed. So I tap immediately and run to the bathroom. And that was the first time I had ever gotten cauliflower ear. My ear like immediately like blew up with all the fluid because he smashed the cartilage in my right ear. That I was like, oh, great, claim to fame. I've grappled Ryan Bader and he gave me cartilage. So Ryan, if you're out there, big fan. Thanks, buddy. Nice to see you. Had to take 2 weeks off from jiu-jitsu to drain the thing, so I didn't have the Randy Couture dried cauliflower for the rest of my life. I'm too pretty for that.
That's a great story, man.
That's awesome.
What a great experience. Clint, tell everyone. Everyone knows where we can find you at, but tell everyone once again.
Yeah, I've got the Die Hard MMA podcast, you guys, every single Monday over on my YouTube channel. And actually, guys, the face-offs, the ceremonials are going right now. I'm going to go live for my undefeated post-weigh-in show immediately after the face-offs conclude. So when we're done here, I'm going to take about 5 minutes to run through those, and then I'm going to be going live for another show myself. So if you guys don't mind, head on over Die Hard MMA podcast. Find me on all social media platforms and YouTube. Same name. Shouldn't be hard to find.
Let's do it. Let's join Clint on his live show.
Definitely.
Clint, thank you so much for doing this, brother. You are one of the best in the business. Thank you so much. And guys, hit the like button. Give a subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to Clint's channel, what are you doing? Get over there and check him out. Clint, good luck on your show tonight. Good luck on the card. Thanks, and let's do this again sometime.
Before we go,
anytime.
it wouldn't be a Clint show if I didn't go get the fireball.
Hey!
My man.
There we go. That's what's up.
Great. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Clint, good luck on the card tomorrow, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, guys.